Welcome back to your classical literature classes. So, yeah, um, yeah. I don't see any questions so far. Okay, yes, finally. So, good morning, Shalia. Yeah. Hello, Khushi. So, Khushi and Shalia have just joined in. So, first of all, I would like to ask you the question. Have you read the text? Have you read Iliad? Anshika, Isha, Ritika, thank you for joining in. Hello, Varsha. All right. Sonal, Lisha, Anjali, Abdul, Shifali, Gunjan, Vicky, Sanjana, Yamini, Priyanka, Gursimar, Leon, Mehak, Varsha, Anmehni, Khushi, Aditi. Okay, Mehak, Akshita. All right, so thank you for joining in, all of you. And so today we'll be starting with Iliad, which is part of your European classical literature texts. And let me just tell you what all I will be covering in the forthcoming lectures. So, am I audible? Yeah. So I'll be doing Iliad. In the next three classes, I will be doing Iliad with you, and then we'll move on to Book of Job and the Gospel according to Saint Matthew, and then we'll be doing readings that are Plato and Aristotle, and so that is what we will be doing in the next classes. Yes, I see a lot of you are very excited. Kindly tell us which books we all have to buy. So, let's just say that you have already everything that you need, and you really don't need to buy a lot, okay? So, the easiest way to go around any paper in literature is to download the text from the net, first of all, okay? But if you're used to reading on like if you're used to reading on paper, then of course you can get the books from Amazon or Flipkart. So firstly, I'll tell you the first thing that we need to do is go to Google and download a copy of, I think, the Penguin translation of Iliad. I don't remember. Just let me just check if I have it so that I can show it to you, because there are a lot of translations that are available on the internet, right? So of course, there's some of them are really good. So yeah, so I have it over here. This is the one that I want you to find on Google, because if you have already made a WhatsApp group, then I can share it with you. But wait. So I hope you can see this. So Homer the Iliad translated by Robert Fagles, and there's an introduction notes by Bernard Knox. So this edition is of Penguin, and I would highly suggest you to get this one. All right, so like I've said, there's no, I don't think I can share the text over here. It doesn't allow me to. Uh, yeah, so I haven't shared anything on the screen as yet, so don't worry. Okay, yeah, Penguin Classics. Like Khushi said, could you? Yeah, of course, Gracie, I would share it with you. Do you have a WhatsApp group or something where I can share the text with you? Because it's easily available. First of all, it's easily available on Google, and you can download the text from there. All right. So just keep in mind that it's a Penguin edition. All right. So it's considered one of the most easily accessible and one of the best translations of the text Iliad. Okay. So I would yeah, I have not shared anything yet. So that is the first thing. This is the text that you need to download or you need to buy. It's entirely up to you, whatever that you're comfortable with. For a soft copy, you can get the Penguin edition from Google or you can buy it. It's easily available on Amazon or Flipkart. All right, so that's the text for you. And for yeah, thank you, Gursamar. Please share the link then. And for the other texts, I have it with me. I do have the texts with me, which I can share it with you. And those two texts are really, really interesting. They are really interesting, and I want you to read them before coming to class. All right. So, have you read Iliad? Okay. All right, so I am not on Telegram, so I will be joining you on WhatsApp. Yeah, so Isha, the thing is, how do you go about a text in literature? And this is going to follow you through, this piece of advice will follow you through your 3 years here. Get the text, read it, and then read the SOL material, all right? Because if you just start to read the SOL material, you won't understand what is it talking about, right? The SOL material is there to help you aid you in reading the text, right? So first read the text, understand what it is about, read the story a little more clearly, and then turn towards your SOL material. And I think the SOL material will give you a beautiful idea about what the text is about, right? And it is also, the material also gives you a lot of these further reading texts, which you can turn to if you are interested in reading more. All right, so just share the link with me so that I can join the group. Akansha, if one of you just shares the link with me, then I can share on any one particular group the texts, and then you can share as widely as you can on other groups. All right. Um, okay. I don't know when will the recorded lectures be uploaded. Um, just a second, then I'll just share the link with you if it's possible. I'll just Google the book, okay? And if I find the right link, then I'll definitely share it with you in the chat box. And then you can download the book from there. Because like I've said, it's pretty easy to find it on Google. Classic Indian Companion Refresher. I don't know. I don't know about that. Um, I don't know about that. So what I will advise you right now is to get the book and to download it. All right, and then turn to your SOL material uh, for a little help, right? So just a second, let me just find if I can get you the link. Penguin edition. Yeah, this is it. Okay, so this gives um, the download option. Can you have a look at this? This is the download option. So try to downloading the text from here. Okay. What you can do right now is, Lisha, it's okay. You don't have to share that many uh, links with me. What you can do is you can send it by the end of the class. I'm so sorry. Um, yeah. Divya, it is entirely up to you. Like I've said, if you want to buy a hard copy or if you want to buy a soft copy. Okay. All right. So I think let's just start talking about what the text is about. And so far, what are the texts that you have studied? You have studied Silappatikaram, you have studied Kalidasa, right? And you have also done Mahabharata. And those are epics, right? Those are Indian epics. So can anyone tell me what did you discuss, or what comes to your mind when I say the word epic, or how familiar are you with the word epic? Okay, and the texts that you have studied, um, the texts that you have studied so far in Indian classical, how are they conveying you the idea of an epic? So let's start with these questions. Rupali, you are all connected to me through Microsoft Teams. So if there's any issue, you can contact me on Microsoft Teams. Yeah. Yes. Anyone who would like to throw light on the idea of epics, because it's a good way to start, because you have already studied the Indian epics and now we are moving towards European classical literature. So can anyone tell me what are your first impressions about the word epic, or how epic is not fictional? Sonam says this, okay. Right now, I see, I'm not going to tell you if you're right or you're wrong right now, because I just want to hear from you what you think of the word epic, or what are your first impressions of it. And because you have covered the Indian portion and now we are moving towards European classical one, I just want to have an idea about what do you think about it? Mixture of races. It is based on real, okay. Epic is more than one hero. Long narrative points. It deals with myth. It describes the things clearly, okay. Royal family in India also called Itihasa, alright. A very important point, which I'll be discussing too, that it will tell us about the Itihasa or the history, yeah. Typically one derived from ancient oral traditions. Very important and very good point, yes. It's a long narrated poem, absolutely. It is far more than normal fictional story, yes, Gursimar. Poem containing history. Very so long, it tells us the history of that kingdom or state or that period of time, okay, include is a great story with some particular characters who have their own duty towards the epic. Okay. And can you give me in one line what do you think about the epics, or what is the main story of the epics that you have studied? What makes them the great epics that they are? Okay. Text have been part of generation. Dharma and karma. Can or cannot be fiction. It's usually a no. It's usually a narrative text. Okay. National universal significances. Divine intervention. Mahabharata is a great. Okay, struggle. Someone says struggle determines the fate of humanity. And long narrative point with serious subject matter is usually heroic in a collection, series of events. It's with the pride of Achilles. Arpita says, all right. Mahabharata. Okay. Long narrative poem in a limited style. Recounting the deeds of a legendary. inspires us, tells us the mistakes that happened in the past. Okay, so I've got the first impressions from you regarding the word or the term epic, and some of you have hit the nail. Um, and that's very good that you have given such lovely answers. So it shows me that you have definitely been working on and you know what an epic is. All right. So epic is written words. All right. So of course, because you're in first year, first semester, and classical paper is definitely a little heavy, and there's a lot of reading to do, and the time that we're going to spend over here may not be enough because of the this nature of an epic, because there's so much to discuss and there's so much to study, but we'll try.
ओके अब मैम आप है लाइव है मैम
अच्छा ठीक है ओके सर हाँ so I was telling you that because you're in first semester, first year, and it's a little heavy paper, I'm not going to deny that, and Iliad is yeah, there was some issue technical, there was some technical glitch, I'm sorry. So it's a heavy paper, and you really need to do a lot of reading, and it can get a little confusing. Shivangi, it's okay, I get your message, you just need to send it once. But if you keep on spamming me, then I won't be able to read the messages that are sent to me by your classmates. Yeah, so it is definitely heavy, and there's a lot of names. There's a lot of names when I tell you. So I will definitely provide you with, a character list of not just the characters, but also of the characters, the names of the characters of gods and goddesses that are present in Iliad. And if I cannot provide you, you can also Google it. It's pretty easy. I'll just show you how to do it. And there are long, detailed videos of the characters and their history on YouTube too, which you can see. Okay, but the main idea for you is you need to focus on the main story. What is the story? It's the story of Achilles, right? And it's the pride, it's the revenge, and these are the main focal points that one needs to focus on while we're doing Iliad. Achilles, the idea of war, right? And the idea of how gods and goddesses have been present, and they are very much a part of the narrative, which is something quite common to the epic poems. But usually what we see is that the gods and goddesses do not take part in the narrative. But here in Iliad, we see that they are very much a part of the narrative. Therefore, their very presence needs to be studied, and the way they are acting in the texts is very particular, right? It is very important because they are acting like mere mortals with their own human characteristics. They are mythological figures, they are gods, but they are acting like humans. All right, so these are the very important the ideas that we need to keep in our that we need to keep in our mind while reading this particular text, that is Iliad. So this particular class that we have today will be focusing on the background. Oh, okay, it will focus on the background of Iliad, and it may get a little tedious, it may get a little boring, but it is important. It is important for us to study the background of the text that we are reading in, and I'm sure in the coming years you will be doing that too. Whenever you're going to start a text, you will read the background. All right, so nobody knows if the text, that is Iliad, is telling us the truth or not. Nobody knows that the war that has been talked about in Iliad has happened or not. And one can also question the very identity of Homer itself. All right, so we have a lot of these questions here with us present while we are reading Iliad, right? While we are trying to analyze the text that the Iliad is. All right, and very central to Iliad is the idea that history is something that may change, right? It can be changed, it can be reproduced and produced, because as and when we come to know about different things, as and when we come to know about a new way in architecture, what am I saying, architecture, archaeology, we suddenly discover something new, right? So that is what we're going to look at today in the background, right? I'm sorry, there's a technical glitch, so it gets a little it gets a little distracting. Let me just share the text with you so that we can start. Okay. So it's okay if you do not understand everything right away. All right. Do not get intimidated. Yes, it is about Greek mythology, Kevin, but you really need to remember the names, and I will share it with you. Don't worry. But right now, let's start with the background. I hope you can see. Okay. So the Iliad and the Mycenaean civilization. Homer's Iliad is about a Greek expedition against Troy by Agamemnon, king of Mycenae in southern Greece. All right, here, when the first thing that you need to remember when we're going to do in Iliad is that you will be pronouncing every alphabet that there is. Yes, China, the class is live. There was some technical issue, but it has been solved. All right. So every word that is there, like for example, Agamemnon, Mycenae, they will be pronounced. The alphabet that's there. All right. The E that is at the end, it will be pronounced. And even when you're reading the names of gods and goddesses, you will be pronouncing each and every sound that there is. Okay. So Homer's Iliad is about a Greek expedition against Troy, led by Agamemnon, king of Mycenae in southern Greece. The story is set in a remote heroic age, distinct from and superior to the present, in which war and warrior leaders are the norms. And definitely because you have read Indian classical literature, you have read Mahabharata, and you are aware of Ramayana, try to bring in references. You can obviously write them down in the chat box. Try to find references between the texts that you have studied, right? Because you have already studied Mahabharata, which is also talking about the war, right? Is it not? It is talking about the war. You cannot see. Let me just share it again. Now is it visible? Yeah, so you have done war, Mahabharata and you have studied war. So just try to find the parallels between both the texts, okay? As in when we are uh, reading about it. Okay, so in historical terms, the heroic age is to be identified with the Mycenaean civilization of the second millennium BC. That's from 1600s to 1100s. Homer's Greeks are called Argives, Dannas, and Achaeans. And Achaeans is the word that we'll be using the most. All right, with the Mycenaeans, and they are known for architectural excavations at Mycenae and elsewhere. The Mycenaeans were the first Greek speakers to establish a civilization on Greek soil. Their ancestors had come from the north, that's from 2000 BC, completing one of many prehistoric migrations undertaken over several millennia by Indo-European speaking people from probably somewhere to the northwest of the Black Sea. On their arrival, they encountered a non-Indo-European Minoan culture, which they established, absorbed, and displaced. The Greece they then created seems to have been a coherent miniature empire based on several palace centers, which we will also be seeing in this particular text, right? Including one at Mycenae itself. It was bureaucratic and centralized. Among its sophisticated features was writing in the syllabic script known as Linear B, which you can easily find on Google. If you just type Linear B, you will find many tablets using this particular syllabic script. Okay, and that is how most of the archaeologists try to connect the idea of what we are studying in Iliad to the Mycenaean age. Among its foreign contacts was the ancient city of Troy, now Hisarlik, in Turkey, situated a few miles from the Hellespont and the Aegean Sea. So you have right here, if you look at the world map right now, and this is Turkey and this is Greece, and here is where Troy was supposed to be, right? And like any other civilization that we have studied about in history when we were young, we have talked about how necessary it is to be on um, over here with the water body next to you, which aids any civilization, right? Because it helps in trade, it helps in commerce, and it also gives you the sustenance to for the civilization, right? So you have Troy right over here, say overlooking the Aegean Sea. Now let's have a look at this particular video that I find is very informative to give you the idea of what is happening. So let me just share it with you. Okay, so just a second. Yes, can you see the screen now? Can you see the screen? There must be some issue. Maybe your connectivity might not be good. Is that the reason? I can see that the screen is getting shared over here. Can you see the screen right now? Is the screen visible? Is the screen visible? Now? Can you see a video? How do archaeologists know that this is the legendary city of Troy? It's not possible. I can see this. I can see it being shared over here. Now? Now is it visible? Okay, wait, then I'll share the link with you. I see there's a lot of spamming that's happening, so please don't. And I think I'll share it with you the next time. Let's then continue with the PowerPoint because I wanted to show you a video, but I'll show it at the end again. So it's okay if you don't see the screen. You can write down whatever the important points are. It's all right. It's okay. I just wanted to show you a video, which I thought would be nice and informative, but it's okay. So let's get back to the text, and it's all right. It's just the background. You can hear me. Just focus on what I'm speaking. It's okay. It's all right because it is being shared. I don't know what is the issue. Yeah. So let's start. In a period of widespread disruption throughout the Eastern Mediterranean towards this end of the second millennium, the Mycenaean palace culture, its bureaucracy, and its writing was destroyed. And in the same period, Troy was destroyed too, more than once, as the different layers revealed by the modern excavation show. And this is what I wanted to show you in that particular video, that there are almost like 7 to 8 or 9 layers. That is, like when you when it was excavated for the first time, that was it. It was found that there were almost 7 to 8 layers of the city. So it was found that many times the city burned, and many times, it got built up again, right? It got burned and got built up again, right? And the layer known to the archaeologists as Troivia met a violent end around 1220 BC, which corresponds roughly with the traditional date for the Troy, accepted by the Greeks of the classical period. Whether the destruction of Troivia actually was the event that lies behind the Homeric saga, and whether, if so, it was the work of a Mycenaean force, cannot be proved or disproved. And both assumptions, however, are commonly made, along with a large qualification that the Homeric version of events is poetry, not history, and may well have little common with the original enterprise, whose scale, apart from anything else, has surely been greatly enhanced in the retelling, right? So even though you can still find people trying to connect Homer, trying to connect Iliad with something that has actually happened, right? You will find a lot of these questions, you will find a lot of hesitation also at the same time, that whether it really happened or not. So you have a lot of these archaeologists, and some of them, like, I really wanted you to see the video, but it's not visible. And some of the archaeologists are great readers, they enjoyed reading Iliad, and therefore there was this madness of trying to find if it happened or not. And therefore, this particular site that they found in Turkey was excavated many times to find links between what we know as Homer's Iliad and what we know as the civilization that may have, may have been built on. In that particular part of Turkey. All right. So yeah. So the overthrow of Mycenaean civilization was also the work of unidentified agents. But the most plausible theory refers us to the so-called Dorian invasion. All right. So right now, please, students, do not get worried if you cannot see the screen. Just focus on what is being told to you, what is being discussed in the class. All right. It is just the background. We will be doing the text in the coming classes. Just focus on the text. Hear what is being spoken. Therefore refers us to the so-called Dorian invasion. And I am sharing the screen, by the way, because whenever you share the screen, there's a red background. All right. So the aftermath of the Mycenaean age certainly was fragmentation and the establishment over much of mainland Greece of a distinct dialect group whose various versions of Doric Greek or strictly West Greek persisted into the classical period and beyond. Faced with the new invaders, the older established groups sought refuge in remote parts of the Greek world, like the Arcadian highlands of central southern Greece, or regrouped to the east, or else migrated still further eastwards to the island and coastland of Asia Minor. There in historic times, the predominant dialects were Ionic and Aeolic, and both descendants of the versions of Greek once spoken over much of the Greek mainland, and the latter now spoken where Homer's Troy has formerly stood. And these movements and migrations are known by inference. And they took place in what we call the Dark Age, and this is important to us. Dark Age, dark because it has left a few traces, and because partly on that evidence, it exhibits a cultural inferiority to the periods before and after, even though it is in fact the age in which iron was introduced to Greece. When in the 8th century, the recovery of Greek civilization becomes apparent, we observe a cluster of events which tell the fragmentation of the Dark Age, imply a new sense of Greek identity overriding tribal and dialectical differences. The organization of the Greek world, it is true, is now based on the unitary city-state, which of course is very common to most of the texts that we have read or we will be reading. The polis, right? And you must have studied this in your political science as well, whose independence is and remains the most cherished possession. The city-states, however, are now seen to share a consciousness of Hellenic status, as it will soon be called. All right, and this is a word that you will come across again and again when you're looking at classical, European classical literature, Hellenic period, through their willingness to participate in common Greek actions and institutions. The climactic achievement of Pan-Hellenism is no doubt the victorious struggle against the Persians in the 5th century, but its first expressions are to be found in the 8th. And in this century, we note the inauguration of the first Pan-Hellenic festival, that's the Olympic Games, the rise of the Delphic Oracle, and the invention of the dissemination of the Greek alphabet from Semitic, probably Phoenician. And in this century, Greece produced the work Iliad, a work that celebrated the first known collective acts by Greeks against an external power, and a work that offered all Greek speakers a common cultural point of reference, a view and version of the Greek gods that transcended local varieties, a standard pan-Hellenic poetic language, and a standard for indeed the very concept of a national literature, with the Iliad and pan-Hellenic ideal achieves a definite form. So because we have already done Indian classical and you know how important the texts are to how they become texts of national importance. So you can see how even Homer, gives birth. Homer's Iliad gives birth to the idea of what Greek civilization could have been during its time, right? And it has become an epic of national importance, and it will be giving you an idea about what society was like, how the gods and goddesses were, what were the driving forces of the characters or the humans that may or may not have that may or may what we think may have lived on in that particular period. All right, so let me share this particular um, link with you if it's just a second. Okay, so I have shared the link with you, and this is what I wanted to show you actually. And you can keep clicking on it. So this is what I was showing, so don't worry. Okay, and okay, so far I've shared this, so you don't have to worry. Okay, I'll keep sharing whatever links that I have attached or the links that I think are important for you. Okay, and keep in mind, and if you cannot view this link, then I'll share it with you on WhatsApp, so don't worry. Like I've said, please don't spam because it's very difficult. Okay, so I've shared the link. Yeah, okay. Do not share the links, the WhatsApp link with me right now. Share it at the end of the class at 12 o'clock. All right. So when was Iliad written? And the Iliad is to be dated around 730 BC, and this dating, though widely accepted, rests on no early testimony due to the remoteness of the period, right? And because like every epic, we always think that was it written or was it not? Is it fictional or is it actual history? So one may never know, right? One may never know. Even with Indian classical epics, we are not really sure if they actually happened. We definitely try to make connections by going to that place that we think that the epic was situated in. We try to excavate the sites and we try to make sense of the things that are found over there, right? So similarly, the thing it's with Iliad, right? Nobody knows if it has actually happened. The connections are being made, the connections have been made, but truly if it is real or not, no one can tell, because the dating that we all come up with for an epic text such as Iliad, for Mahabharata, for Silipatikaram, right? For Oedipus Rex, they're all resting on the testimony that there was a time that they may have happened, but nobody is living to survive the, but nobody is surviving to tell us that tale, right? So because of that, due to the remoteness of the period to which the poem belongs and the comparative illiteracy of the culture, right? Because we don't have anything like Instagram or Facebook to record everything and to show. So technically it is that ways it might be an issue to record things. They've also, it was an oral form, but you do have tablets, right? Like I told you, if you can Google the script, you can find tablets, you can find vases, you can find vases that were found from that particular period that may speak otherwise, right? Belongs to comparative literature of the culture. There is no contemporary information about its date, either in absolute terms or in relation to other datable events. The dating is established by by a combination of factors. The absence from the poem of any element that on either linguistic or historical groups is definitely later than 700 BC, or if arguably later. Any element that cannot be explained away as superficial distortion or trivial insertion into an 8th century original. The occasional occurrence in the poem of objects or customs which seem on archaeological evidence to imply a date no earlier than 750. Late 8th century vase paintings, which may be representations of the scenes from Iliad, and this is most possible on plausible is the one we find on the Attic jug, which is now in Louvre, Paris, which have been identified with the events of Iliad the Seventh, especially the duel between Hector and Ajax, a verse inscription on a judge from Ischia in southern Italy, which refers to the cup of Nestor described in Book 9. And I will just share the links with you on this. Just a second. This is the particular jug that has been talked about, and that is considered that it may have been a representation of what may have happened in history. Okay. Yeah. So here are the two images that are being shared. I hope you can see them. And they both represent, one represents the script, and these two artifacts were considered to be making a link with the time around which Troy was written. So even though we believe that it may have been a fictional universe created by Homer, there are these artifacts there are these historical things and artifacts that prove otherwise also. And on the second link that I have shared with you, you can see that there is a script. Of course, you have to, the link has pictures of a jug, right? And there are other pictures available on Google that will show you a script that is written on it. So that also proves the idea of, that Troy may have been a city that was there, and whatever that Homer is talking about in Iliad might have actually happened. Asma, it is an oral epic. Okay, so it is an oral epic. Okay, so I hope you can have a look at that. And now we look at what is like, who was Homer, right? Because we are still, as scholars, we need to understand, like I've said, because the Iliad is dated for, we are still unsure about the date. So how can we be so sure about it was Homer who actually wrote it, right? It can be a group of bards that came together to sing this particular song. It can be someone else. It can be anyone by the name of Homer that is writing this particular epic, or that is singing this particular epic. Right? Though indeed little more than a name to later Greeks, Homer was still regarded by them as a real person, not as a kind of a legendary figure. Okay, and for Homeros, or Homer, is at the very least a very Greek name. All right, and various localities laid claim to him. The most plausible tradition associated with him was the Ionian island of Chios. A poem probably by Simonides quotes a famous line from Iliad and ascribes it to the man from Chios. So it is only through these cross references, it is only through these references found in other works can one be sure that they might be a person who wrote the text, that is Iliad, right? And he might be also called Homer. We are not really sure. Okay. And it seems that the Guild of Rhapsodies, or reciters called Homeridae, right, descendants of Homer, literal or spiritual, existed in Chios at least at early as the 6th century. At all events, Homer was a name generally associated with the Iliad and the Odyssey, another very important text of Homer. Here too, though there was uncertainty, there were voices in antiquity that suggested different authors for the two poems. On the other hand, various heroic epics, now lost, some of them dealing with parts of the Trojan saga not covered by the Iliad or the Odyssey, were often ascribed to Homer as well. So there were a lot of other texts too that were thought to be written by Homer, but the very idea that we don't know or we cannot be sure of who Homer was, creates a lot of problem and confusion. By the 4th century, however, Homer, without further qualification, meant that he was the author of Iliad and Odyssey. And in the first place, we have relevant testimony concerning the recitations of Homer at the Greek Athenian festival, the Panathenea, at this time. From a variety of later sources, we learn that one or the other of the 6th century rulers of Athens, right, initiated legislation, established the recitations and regulating their performance. They were to involve the epics of Homer only. And the epics were to be recited in full and their proper order by a series of rhapsodies, with one ending where his predecessor left off. So, like I've said, most of the epics were sung, they were of oral nature. Right, so similar to this particular epic, we can only believe that this too was meant to be sung, right? And it is implicit in these accounts, the earliest of which belong to the 4th century, that Homer, which did mean the Iliad and the Odyssey by that time, meant the same in the 6th century itself. And now we look at the society in Iliad, and we will be covering more of this in the coming lectures, right? But what is the society like in Iliad? Like Homeric language, Homeric society defies any attempt to relate to it in a particular historical reality. Set in a remote heroic age, the world of Iliad is a sophisticated fiction, right? We still don't know, like I've said, we still don't know if it's a sophisticated fiction or not, but it is something that has been created by Homer's beautiful vision, right? There are cities, there are battles, there are well fleshed out characters, okay, and also there is a historically somewhat accurate description of a place, right, with elements derived from different traditions and memories, different periods and localities, and other elements which are purely imaginary. The most obvious symptom of the poem's unhistoricity is the impossible scale of the achievements and activities that it depicts. The huge wealth of Troy and the huge Achaean expedition are no more historical than the huge physical strength of the heroes, which permits them to cast weight such as two men of today could not even lift between them. And that is why it can be considered something that is entirely fictional, or something that was created as an imagination, from the imagination of Homer. Heroic hugeness is contrasted with the mundane here and now, and the contrast is primarily purely symbolic. Some of the memories embodied in the Iliad do indeed go back to the Mycenaean age. Even some particular objects like the one that I've shared with you, like the Nestor's cup. And then there are negative recollections. The epic avoids anachronistic allusion to the post-Mycenaean migrations of Dorians from the north and Ionians to the east. That the epic fails to talk about what may have happened or what is going to happen after the Battle of Troy, right? It completely talks about one particular, it's almost like it is straight jacketing itself into this particular position and is not willing to talk about the other things, right? What may have preceded it or what may have succeeded it, right? But fictional reinterpretation is generally detectable. The chariot is remembered as the Mycenaean fighting machine, but instead of the weapon it has become a transport vehicle. Bronze is remembered as the Mycenaean metal for weaponry, but iron, which belongs to a later age, serves in Homer as the metal for ordinary tools. The Iliad preserves the tradition of the Mycenaean palace centers and their actual locations at Mycenae and elsewhere, but gives no hint of the sophisticated administrative system, the bureaucracy, and the writing on which the palaces depended. So these are very important ideas which may make us think that if it actually happened or not. Homer's warrior heroes may live in some ways like warlords of the second millennium, but when they die, they are not buried as their Mycenaean counterparts would have been, but cremated like many of men, like many men of Homer's era. And the values and the social institutions of the Iliad are certainly, on the whole, post Mycenaean and generally perhaps a poeticized version of the realities of the Dark Age, immediately before the poet's own time. The basis is aristocratic, right? And we have already looked at an Indian classical as also. They were talking about princesses, they're talking about the kings, and there is a stratification between the warrior aristocracy, at the head of which Primus inter pares is one man like Agamemnon, and the mass of free peasants and occupational defined types who may enjoy some kind of citizen status but count for nothing in war or council, because we do see a lot of deaths, and there are almost, I don't know, a mention of almost 400 to 500 deaths in detail in Iliad. There is the institution of guest friendship, whereby aristocrats exchange hospitality and gifts. The beneficiary gains honor very important to us. The benefactor gains the other's future support. This institution is taken seriously, hence Glaucus and Diomedes, though only the descendants of guest friends refuse to fight. Right, and hence to the outbreak of the Trojan War itself, the result of a breach of the code when Paris, through a guest of Mars, stole his wife Helen. Above all, there is the individual ethic to which the aristocratic heroes subscribe. They are concerned for personal honor. This is very important to any other epic too, the idea of personal honor and their competitive ambition to always be the best, to always be the best warrior, right? And that best, however, implies a mutual recognition. Theirs is not an outlook in which conscience and internal moral sanctions bulk large. The chief sanction that they recognize is the risk of losing face with their peers, right? And theirs is a shame culture, not a guilt culture, right? You can only shame them, but you cannot guilt them in any way. And we can see this a lot, and we will see this happening with Achilles. The lifestyle and the social political basis of this aristocratic existence are presented as reality in the Iliad. And as readers, for us, it is sufficient to know that diverse materials have been fictionalized into a homogeneous composite within which the whole Greek world is presented as a social and material uniformity. So we have Iliad, we have something that is written by Homer and which has been questioned for its authenticity, but it represents this particular civilization. It represents the Greek, mythology, and we can only consider it as this whole in itself, and we derive a lot of information from it, whether it's historically, linguistically, mythologically, right? And the historicity of this component part of this new world whole is the way. And by comparison, just a second. Just a second. Yeah, absolutely. Everything will be shared with you. I do not believe it is if it is fictional or not. One can really not say anything if it's fictional or not. Um, so I think let's take a break for 2 minutes so that I can rest my voice. I'm just taking a break to rest my voice. Just give me 2 minutes. Sadhya, yes, different classes because here, of course, we see the presence of kings, we see the presence of princes, we see a lot of death that is happening and not accounted for. There is no material, sorry, there is no book that is attached to the SL material. I don't think uh, readable, but he was. Have you guys read the text? You know what? Entry on panels. If you have because if you look at the like if you look at the film, then they students with the material of the film and all the text. So where I think it's the issue of watching a film and of actual details of it. Yeah. Am I now? Yes, am I audible? Can someone just tell me? Just a second. I'm sorry, there are a lot of technical glitches in this class. I hope they're going to be worked out by the next session. So just hold on. We have another hour to go. Just a second. हेलो जी सर, मैं सॉरी, मैंने आपको व्हाट्सएप पे कॉल किया सर। ये मैं आपको कॉल कर रही हूँ मगर
हेलो
मैम से कॉल कर रही हूँ, कोई आ नहीं रहा है। मैंने
क्या
अभी
मैम
मोहित
कोई
सर
issue
को
है?
कॉल किया था। मैम ये देखिए, एकदम से एक तो लाइव इवेंट वो पूरा क्वेश्चन आंसर वाला पूरा चला गया और
मैम यहाँ तो
अभी
अवेलेबल है क्वेश्चन आंसर। हाँ जी मैम।
कोई नेट में इशू तो नहीं है? जैसे अभी मैंने कॉल किया था सर को, व्हाट्सएप से ही किया था
मैम
और
मे
अब
बी
फिर लाइव
आपकी साइड से शायद कुछ हो सकता है नेटवर्क इशू, क्योंकि यहाँ तो प्रॉपर वर्किंग है मैम।
अब फिर गायब हो गया क्वेश्चन आंसर। मतलब अब इतने टाइम से अभी तो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ, फिर गायब हो रहा है, फिर आ रहा है, गायब हो रहा है, आ
मुझे
रहा
तो
है।
अवेलेबल है, मतलब देख लो।
और आपको स्क्रीन, एक सेकंड मैं आपको दोबारा दिखाती हूँ।
आपकी
और
स्क्रीन
स्क्रीन
शेयरिंग
दिख रहा है आपको?
हाँ मैम अब आई है।
स्क्रीन
अभी
भी शो हो रहा है ना?
हाँ जी मैम हो रहा है।
अच्छा ठीक है, तो फिर वही कह रहे हैं बच्चे की मैम स्क्रीन नहीं दिख रहा है, वो नहीं हो रहा है बात। ठीक है ठीक है,
ठीक है ओके
ओके मैम।
कंटिन्यू।
Yeah, now is it available? You're spamming a lot, guys. You're spamming a lot, so it becomes really difficult to go all the way down to the chat box. And I'm sorry, there was a technical glitch, and there are a lot of technical glitches that happened in this particular class. So I'm sorry for that. You know, right now there are almost 921 messages, and every time I open the question and